All right. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining. I have my desktop's kind of messed up, so I have to go back and forth between the Teams meetings. So forgive me if I don't see a chat or a hand right away. So let me get into my slides here first. Perfect. All right. And just let me know if you have any audio issues or anything, or you can't hear me, and I can make some adjustments. But today we are learning all about OneNote, thinking about the next generation of OneNote. We've seen a lot of transformation over time, going from a single app to two apps. There's also the web app and the mobile app. So OneNote's everywhere you are, right? And we're finally seeing a little bit of advancement when it comes to some of the features that we needed to have, more technical capabilities to support coming into one app again. So very excited to share some of that with you here. And then a little bit about me. My name is Nate. I live here in Kansas City, so excited to be here in my hometown user group. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter. I've got a website. Also some books out there, and I just released late last year a course on Microsoft 365 at natethetrainer.com. So if anybody's interested in hearing me talk even more, that's like 4.5 hours of Nate. So all right, and then today, just kind of how I'm splitting up the presentation, we'll start out talking about what the existing flavors of OneNote are, the different experiences you can have with it. We'll talk about what's changing. That's probably the most important thing today, just to kind of understand where we're headed with it. We'll get into tips and tricks, some ideas for looking professional using OneNote, maximizing and customizing your OneNote experience, and then we'll end with some shortcuts and bonus material. Now, there's actually more content than we probably have time for today, so I'll make sure that with the recording that these slides are there as well. These slides have videos, they have different links in them and stuff, so you can kind of explore additional content that maybe we won't get to today on your own time. All right, so starting out with our current flavors of OneNote. So as I mentioned before, OneNote does have a variety of experiences that you may or may not already be using. There is a mobile OneNote app that you can use. The desktop app is probably the most familiar for a lot of us, where we've got either OneNote for Windows 10 or just OneNote, formerly known as like OneNote 2016, OneNote 2021, 2019, just put a year on it, and that's the other one. But now they're just calling that OneNote. Now, OneNote for Windows 10 has come pre-installed on all Windows 10 machines, so you may have that even if you're not using it. But a lot of organizations have kind of stuck to just using the regular OneNote app. So it's kind of a mix and match, if you will. Now, the web app is the one that you may be using and may not be aware of as like a separate instance, but it's very similar to the OneNote for Windows 10 experience. And you'll find that whenever you're using OneDrive, SharePoint, or Teams, or if you just go out to OneNote.com, right? That's all going to be the web app. So we'll dive a little deeper as we explore some of these tips and tricks, and we'll see experiences from all of those. All right, so just thinking more about these experiences, I did want to bring up a couple cool things when it comes to using the mobile app that you may benefit from. If you do download the OneNote mobile app, you can sign in with your work or school account. You could also just use it personally. So think about that when we're talking about like using the camera and such. But there's a really cool thing on there called a badge, a OneNote badge. And basically what that does, it allows you to have a floating OneNote icon that just kind of sits on the side of your screen so you can immediately take a note on whatever you're looking at. Kind of think like an enhanced screenshot, but even better. So I'm going to attempt to share my actual mobile screen with you here, and we'll look at that just really briefly, and I'll talk about a widget that you can use if you're on Android, and then we'll get back into the other experiences. So bear with me 1 second here. I'm going to do multiple switches. Maybe. Can't be easy. There we go. Okay, we'll just make sure that's showing there. Awesome. Okay, so you can already see on my screen, I know it's kind of hard, but if you look on the right side of my screen, there is this little OneNote badge here. And so you can just put that wherever you want on your Android device. And then basically, if you're looking at a website or any kind of app, you just tap that badge and you can immediately start taking a note. So you can see on mine, I can title the page, I can put some content in there, take a quick note, and then go right back to whatever I was doing. Maybe the daily Wordle, maybe going to go check the news or Twitter. but it's right where I am, right? And it's on the go with me. Probably the quickest way to get a quick note into my work notebook, or like I said, maybe your personal notebook, if you have an idea for a grocery list. Okay, so one other thing, in addition to that badge that you can do, is you can actually use a widget on your desktop. So if I just hold on well, I'm going to call it a desktop, it's a wallpaper. If you just hold on your wallpaper, if it's Android, there's an option for widgets. So I'll go to my widgets, I'll search for OneNote here,
Hey
and we'll look at
Nate,
our.
somebody's commenting that they only see a black screen. I do see your device. Anybody else having problems?
I see it myself.
Okay. Awesome. So I think we got a consensus there, but hopefully it'll show up in the recording for those of you who maybe can't see it right now. But yeah, so let me move my Teams meeting there a little bit. But you can see on my screen now, if you are using Android, you've got a variety of different buttons you can actually just put on your wallpaper. So if you don't like the badge idea where it's always floating on top of all of your other apps, you might like one of these widgets instead. Especially those of you who are into dictation. There's a microphone icon. Immediately get into recording your voice using that dictation feature. You can create new pages, take pictures, of course. That's the third option on there. And then I'm actually going to use this one. Here we go. I'll drag that to my desktop. And now I've got one-tap access to do a whole bunch of stuff. Take a picture, record my voice, or create a page. So that's kind of the gist of the two features that I'd like to show you, that OneNote badge or using that widget. So just real quick in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, is anybody currently using the OneNote mobile app? Awesome. So quite a few. Yeah, it's really handy. And if it weren't for those widgets, I probably wouldn't be like as interested, but it really changed the game for me. All right, so let me reshare my normal screen. There we go. All right, so that's the most technically complicated thing I'm going to do this whole time. All right, slides here. Maybe, there we go. All right, so we looked at mobile, and then another experience you may be familiar with is OneNote for Windows 10. So remember, that's the one that's pre-installed on Windows 10 that you may be using just by default, especially on your personal machines. At work, it's probably going to be the other one, but some organizations are using OneNote for Windows 10. But it kind of looks like what you see on the right, the right side here. Let me zoom in just a little bit. One way to tell really easily which version you're on is just look at the title bar. It's actually going to say OneNote for Windows 10 or just OneNote. Now, we'll talk more about what's changing here in just a little bit, but that's going to be important to understand kind of where you're at today and where you might want to go after today. All right, so what we're looking at here, OneNote for Windows 10 has got some great features, and I just wanted to point out that there's a researcher feature in that version, and you'll also find this in the web version. It's really handy. If we have some time, I'll show you how to use it, but I just used it in this example to pull in information about Kansas City and basically just dumped it on a page. So really simple. This is available in OneNote, just the normal desktop version, but it's not as robust. So again, if we have time, I'll take a look at that. All right, now here's a change in our screenshot here to the newest OneNote. This has the visual refresh, so if it looks a little bit different from yours or what you're used to with OneNote, maybe you haven't used it in a while. Now, nowadays, it's going to be reflecting that new visual refresh we saw with all of the Office apps. So Word and PowerPoint, Excel, all of them kind of got this new, just really streamlined, clean interface now. So this is the one that's basically going to be the foundation of OneNote going forward. And what we're looking at here is something I will have time for later, which is page templates. But it's the same idea. In fact, we're looking at the same page from before, just in the other version of OneNote. Oh, and then just the title bar there, notice it just says OneNote. All right. So with the mobile app, just to go back to that real quick, the badge is there. I also want to point out if you use sticky notes, that's going to be built into OneNote as well. So I should have shown you that when I had my mobile app up. But if you do like sticky notes on your Windows machine, for example, same idea. That's actually the exact same app that we're looking at here. It all syncs. And we'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. Now, just two more things on the flavors of OneNote. Like I mentioned, you could use the mobile app, you could use the desktop versions, either one right now. And then there's the web versions, right? You can just go to OneNote.com, and you're also going to be using that web version in Teams, as we're seeing here, where it's embedded in there and squished. One question I get all the time that I'll just go ahead and share to give you an idea is people don't always like how squished this does get in Teams, especially if you have a smaller screen size. So one thing you can do is use this double arrow expander icon, whatever you want to call that, in the upper right hand corner, and that'll get rid of your left hand navigation. So you'll have a little bit more real estate there, and maybe get a little more value right out of embedding that in Teams. And then the other experience of OneNote in the web is going to be in SharePoint. And this one doesn't squish. It's actually going to take you out to it'll be within SharePoint, but it's actually a full screen rendering of OneNote on the web. So we can get a little bit more space to work with, right? But again, it's just the web version. Doesn't matter if we embed it in Teams, doesn't matter if we're looking at it from SharePoint, doesn't matter if we go to OneNote.com, right? Or OneDrive. It's all going to be that same kind of feel. So I'll pause there before we go into what is changing. Are there any questions about the different flavors of OneNote? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to switch back here. Next up, what is changing? Let's talk about that a little bit. It's really not too complex. The basics, basically all you need to know is that Windows 10 was originally created because it needed to do a few more advanced things that the Office suite couldn't support at the time. You're probably familiar, if you are using Windows 10, that every notebook that's there has to be cloud-based, right? There's also some more advanced features, like I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head, but Researcher is a good example that's a little more robust. Gosh, what else? Dictation is only available in the Windows 10 version right now. So there's just a few things here and there that we got because we separated out into that app, right? But then we had two, and we had to figure out, do I want to use the Windows 10 version? Do I want to use, OneNote 2016 back in the day? Or do I want to use both? And honestly, from my perspective, I chose both. There were reasons when I wanted to use OneNote 2016, which was like page templates using different features, like trying to think what else there is that's unique. Oh, like Outlook tasks, for example. And I was like, I don't want to give that up, right? But I also wanted to use the really cool stuff that was coming out with the Windows 10 version, which at the time we were told this is going to be, the way forward. This is the one that's going to get all the cool new updates. And so I was trying to invest in that one too. So now we're kind of backstepping a little bit, and all those cool new features that we got with Windows 10, they're now able to incorporate into the OneNote desktop app, right? So that's basically what's happening. Anything that's been released isn't guaranteed to go into the OneNote desktop app, but they haven't announced that feature list yet. So all they've said so far is all the features that you love in OneNote for Windows 10 will show up in OneNote. So we'll stay tuned and we'll see what those specific features are at a later date. So some specific notes here. We are looking at the second half of this year to see these apps consolidate. The visual refresh you should already be seeing today. Could depend on your organizational policies and controls. OneNote, again, will absorb those features that were unique to Windows 10. And then as far as like what you should use, it's totally up to you in the meantime. You can continue using Windows 10. You can switch over now if you want to and start using OneNote. Or again, like me, maybe you want to use both for different purposes. So what they're recommending right now is just keep using Windows 10 if you are using that now. And then when the time comes that it's time to switch over, they're going to have some kind of product or some tool to help you switch over, some kind of migration assistance to get you into the other version as easily as possible. Same with IT staff. If you happen to work with IT and you're worried about moving a whole bunch of people, there should be some assistance there, but more to come on that later. So some FAQs, maybe I'll get ahead of some questions here, but be thinking about any questions about these changes that you have. I'll see what I can answer, but here's what I know just from what we've seen online already. Can you get OneNote if you don't have it installed? Absolutely. So I'll put this link out with our follow-up as well, or you can just go to onenote.com/download. So basically, again, all Windows 10 machines have the Windows 10 version, but they may not have had the OneNote desktop app, right? Like OneNote 2016. So it is a separate install. Okay, and do you need to do anything if you're already using OneNote? Nope. Again, like I mentioned, they'll help you with that transition. It's not going to be too rocky, hopefully. Do you need to uninstall the Windows 10 version? I say no, but also, when you get to a point where you feel like you're really comfortable and all of your content looks correct in OneNote, it makes sense, right? We don't need it anymore. Why have both on there? But totally up to you and your own preferences. And of course, if you work for an organization who handles all that, they'll do it for you. All right, which features? Yeah, we talked about that. Those will be announced later. Can you use local notebooks? This is kind of exciting, actually, because I know when OneNote for Windows 10 came out, one of the things that was kind of a downside for a lot of users was, oh, I can't save notebooks locally, which was great for IT staff, and some users were just kind of disheartened about that. Everything had to go to OneDrive or SharePoint, right? And so with this reversal, kind of going back to that OneNote desktop app, you will still be able to use local notebooks. So if you want to save those, maybe put them on a shared network drive or create templates or whatever, that's coming back to us. Then which features will be removed? This is great news. None. So they're not looking to remove anything from OneNote, although I'm just speculating that we will see some features deprecate at some point, and that's going to be mostly those that are related to desktop app usage, and I'll talk more about those later. But as far as this merging or this consolidation, there shouldn't be anything removed in that process. How do you change your default? Sharon was just mentioning this as we were chatting before we got started. So she's a super hero who can help you out with that if you want to reach out for some assistance. Also, I'll share this link with you in the follow-up. All right, so any questions about what is changing? Yep, so Hal just added templates and local storage have always been an issue for me with the Windows 10 version. Yeah, so templates are just amazing, and it was really hard to see that was never introduced in Windows 10. So kind of excited to get to go back to that a little bit. Okay, Tamara says, I have OneNote 2016. How does this affect? Actually, that's perfect. So Tamara, just keep using that, and that's the one that they're going to be building on. So eventually, at some point, it's just going to say OneNote. It's going to say OneNote 2016, and you might just double check and see that it doesn't already. But yeah, you're doing exactly what you should do. Just keep updating your machine, and eventually you'll be on the right version through the whole process. All right. Excuse me. I'm going to switch back here. We'll go into our third category. Now we're getting to the fun stuff. Of course, if you have questions, though, feel free to let me know. So some nice features that we've seen in both versions are the ability to record, but they were a little bit different. I can't remember which one had which, so I'll just talk about which one or which features you have going forward. So this is a video from OneNote 2016 or the OneNote desktop app, however you want to look at that. And I'm just going to call it OneNote going forward, just so you know. If I do talk about OneNote for Windows 10, I'll say Windows 10. But for the most part, everything's going to be OneNote. So what we're looking at here, when you go to insert in OneNote, you are able to insert audio and video recordings. And basically this helps you, if you sit down at a desk and you know people are going to be talking really fast and sharing a lot of ideas, you can sit down, get their consent to record, of course, and then have that audio to refer back to later. And something that's really cool about this that's often overlooked is that if you're also taking notes while you're audio recording, when you play it back, you can actually see highlighted what you were typing at that point in the audio recording. So it gives you that context too, where you can say, oh, when I typed in grocery list, this is what they were talking about. That made me think about that, right? Right, so just like that with the video, I've got a video demo here, works the same way. You can either go to insert and then use video recording, or notice when I'm on the playback menu already, because maybe I was doing audio as well, then it just goes straight there, right? It gives you a little preview. When you're finished, then you've got your audio and your video there. All right, and then dictation, remember this is the one that I mentioned was unique to the Windows 10 version, but it's also available in the web version. So even though I'm not going to be showing you a lot of Windows 10 stuff, there is going to be some overlap like this. So currently you won't see dictation in OneNote, right? This is one that I'm really hopeful that we'll see incorporated because it is a very popular feature. You do get this on the mobile app, of course, so that's really natural for a lot of us who do like voice to text and stuff. You can also do your voice to OneNote, right? And I'll just show you this one real quick. There we go. And I'll just open up a new page here in my research category. And notice here's my audio, here's my video. There's no dictation in this version, which on the right you can see is OneNote. And I know that's tiny, so I'll try to make it clear. On the left, I do have OneNote for Windows 10. I just want to show you a quick comparison, but I'm not going to use that going forward. Okay, but I will switch. There we go. To the web version. There we go. And it looks just like OneNote for Windows 10, right? But it's just in a browser. So if you are still using Windows 10 and you want to keep using that for a while, it's still going to be pretty much the same layout. So here we go. I'll open up a new page and I'm going to do a dictation demo. I'll click down here and then I'll turn on my dictation. I'll say, yep, you can use my microphone. And then as I'm speaking, it's going to transcribe what I'm saying, and it's a lot more efficient than me typing, right? Unless I'm a super fast typer. One thing that I'm really bad about with dictation, though, as you're noticing right now, is that I don't use punctuation. So at some point, I'm either going to have to go back in there and add all that punctuation, or just maybe I'm using this to search my ideas later, right? Kind of like a brain dump, where I just want to get it all out, and then later I can go back and review that. All right, so that was dictation. All right, moving on. So I love keyboard shortcuts. I'm sure some of you do as well. One thing that's kind of nice is using timestamps, especially those of you who might be working, with problem resolution or any kind of ticket follow-up, or maybe you're just tracking, vendor correspondence or client contacts, those kind of things. And so there is an option in OneNote. You just go to, I think it's on Insert and then Date and Time, and you can see that's being used right here. But rather than use the menu, if you just do Alt-Shift-F, it inserts the current date and time. So as you're on the phone with someone and they're reporting issues, you could insert the timestamp and then say whatever it is that they're trying to convey to you. Maybe you get a phone call, maybe it's an email, it doesn't really matter, but just a quick Alt-Shift-F includes that important information so you can see kind of how your relationship with that client or that vendor or customer has evolved, right? And where you started and when the last contact might have been. All right, and then more space. I'll show you this one specifically here in just a moment, but you can kind of see what's happening. Basically, whenever you have a whole bunch of text, right, and things are getting kind of messy, you can use insert and then insert space to break apart text boxes. And this is something that's kind of strange about OneNote. Let me switch into the app here. There we go. So this is just plain OneNote. And let me find a bunch of text here. One of these. There we go. So just so you know what I'm working with here, there's a website out there. I love to share this with people if you're a Jeff Goldblum fan, but it's called jeffsome.com, and you can just get a bunch of his quotes from movies and stuff as sample text. And I think that's more fun and modern than lorem ipsum, right? So that's all we're looking at here. But basically, as you're typing in OneNote, it puts everything in a container, right? Notice how that's one block of text. And so if I click over here and I start typing some more, right, that's a separate block. But if you paste, like a whole novel, though, in this first box, or if you've just been typing in it forever and you decide at some point that you'd like to be able to create a column layout or something a little bit different, that's one reason insert space could be really handy. And all you do is you just go up to insert, go to insert space, and then basically cut it, right? Where do you want to make that split? So I just cut right here, drag down. Notice it's giving me the option of how much space to introduce. Let go, and now I've got two separate boxes, which is a little more efficient, right, than trying to copy and paste into a new box. Now, along that same line, just imagine if you wanted to insert notes between where you are, like maybe you're taking notes during a meeting and someone says, hey, can we go back to that topic? And you decide that you'd like to create a separate box, right, where we can continue talking about that topic or rearrange it some way. Really handy for that. All right. I'm very mindful of our time, so I'm going a little fast, so I hope it's okay with everyone. Now the next one is image to text. So oftentimes a lot of us are taking screenshots, right? And we're trying to get the main message out to people. And sometimes it'd be nice just to be able to pull out pieces, right? Maybe it's a scan of a document, maybe it's a picture of a book page or something. You're at a conference, right, and you're busy and you don't want to carry around 34 handouts, so you're just snapping pictures left and right. This comes in handy because you can actually extract the text from images and then format it however you want, right? So it's ready to be copied and pasted into a chat message. You can put it in an email, or really whatever your end goal is with it. So really for this to work, all you have to do is right-click any image, choose copy text from picture, and then paste it. And notice it creates that separate text box there with workable links. Now, something you may have noticed in the links there, I know it's going real fast, but it's not always 100% accurate. In fact, the LinkedIn URL, notice it's www_LinkedIn. So you got to fix a little bit here and there. It does its best. Now, along that same line, and it's coming up a little later, I think, so it's not right away, but you can also just use a normal search, just like a Control F, or you can use the search bar and search for words that are in an image. So you don't actually have to pull out the text just to search it. You would only do this if you wanted to like copy and paste the text itself for something else, right? The searchability, you can actually search images. But you know what? It is next. Ta-da! All right, so in this example, I am using the search bar. You could also just do Control F, search for OneNote in this case, and notice it's actually highlighting on that same image we just looked at all the times OneNote appears. See, so we don't have to pull that out to search it. I think that's one of the best features of OneNote is just that searchable image capability. Saves me a bunch of time, and I am one of those people who wants to take a picture of a handout so I don't have to carry it around and get it all bent up in my backpack or something. So this helps me out a lot and helps me find the specific resource or handout that I was trying to keep track of from a conference or a training or anything. All right, so I'm actually going to pause here. I want to make sure we're doing okay. Do we have any questions so far about any of these tips or tricks? Oops, sorry, Patsy. Patsy, yeah, good catch there. Sherry, do you have a question? I see your hand up there.
No, that was from earlier.
Oh,
Asking like, who's using OneNote? I'll take it
gotcha,
now.
gotcha. All right, perfect. All right, so next up, this one's pretty handy for deleting and restoring. This is kind of confusing for new OneNote users, so I like to just kind of talk about the mechanics of it all. So if you do delete a page or a section from OneNote, and all you have to do that is just right-click delete. It's pretty simple. But when you do that, it goes to the recycle bin. And it's kind of a strange placement if you ask me. It's in the history tab and then notebook recycle bin. And rather than having a restore, which we're really used to with like OneDrive and SharePoint, right? We don't have a restore feature. Instead, we have to go to history, go to the notebook recycle bin, and then basically you right click what it is that you want to restore, like the page or the specific section, which might be up here, and then you have to move it. So think about the recycle bin less as a recycle bin and more as a new section, right? Or a new notebook where all of your deleted items go for, I think, 60 days before they're gone. So notice I'm deleting there. I go to the recycle bin just from history, recycle bin. And then when I want to restore it, I have to right click, go to move or copy, and choose where I'm going to move it back to. So it's not a true restore. Kind of a strange thing. And I don't know if they'll change that at all to make it more in line with our other M365 recycle bin experiences, but it can be tricky. All right, now we're kind of getting into some other tricky things here, and this is another one of them, where Outlook tasks are visible, they're usable in OneNote, so you may be using these today. And the catch here is that you do have to be using the desktop version of Outlook. So notice here, this is the desktop version of Outlook, and when I'm using those flags, they're perfectly integrated. And this is just from the home ribbon, just home, Outlook tasks, and you can turn any line of text into a task in Outlook. They currently don't have anything like this for Microsoft To Do. That would be what I would speculate about, is maybe at some point we would see tasks from OneNote easily turn into to-do tasks or even planner tasks. Not today, that's just me dreaming. But for now, if you do use the desktop version of Outlook, that might be a handy feature for you. And I want you to keep this in mind when we talk about meetings, because it goes hand in hand, right? If you're using the Outlook version of, or desktop version of Outlook, your meeting details are going to be looking there, right? Instead of the web version, right? And I'll talk about the exception of that as well. So, and again, we'll come back to that. But my next tip for you is inserting files. So we're kind of getting into some fun stuff here. And this has changed a little bit from the last time you may have used this feature. So I like to point out the new fun stuff. But from the insert menu, you can insert a file printout, which is basically just an instant PDF print of your file that's going to display on your page, right? But it's a copy. So always keep that in mind that once you print it out, it's not connected to the original file anymore. So if you do file printout and you put it on your page, make a change to the original, it doesn't carry through. Same with the spreadsheet. If you were to insert like a chart or table or something, kind of depends specifically on what you choose, because some do have a refresh ability. But just kind of be mindful as you're going through file attachment scenarios and make sure that you're doing what you intend to. But that's kind of what's exciting here. Is one of the new features is you can actually copy a file that you want to put in OneNote to SharePoint and then use a link, right? And get people into that habit of going out to a live document as opposed to looking at a static copy. Now, of course, there are business use cases for both where you might want to print out a report from March that'll never change again, right? That makes sense. But if it's a collaborative document where you will be making changes to it going forward, then we definitely want to make sure we're trying to make it as easy as possible for users to get in there and access the live current version of it and not worry that they're looking at outdated information, especially when it comes to policies and procedures. So anyway, this is what's new. When you go to spreadsheet from the insert menu, you go to existing Excel spreadsheet, and that very first option, copy to SharePoint and link, wasn't there before. Now, those of you who use the Windows 10 version probably think this is a little familiar because they did have this ability to upload a file to your OneDrive, right? And then use a link. So it's the same thing, but we're already seeing that kind of technology incorporated in OneNote instead of OneNote for Windows 10. All right. So I do want to show you that. So I'm going to pop out here. There we go. We'll do another new page. And I'm going to go to Insert. We'll do Spreadsheet, Existing. And then we're going to insert this customer profitability sample. Or I'm going to try it too. Well, maybe it's huge. That could be the case. Okay, we'll let that think, and I'll go out to the web version. We'll do something kind of similar. So I'm going to go to Insert. There we go. And we'll do, let's see, we can't do the exact same thing in the web, but we'll do Insert File Attachment. Maybe I'll try to find something that's a little bit smaller here. Maybe. I don't know where I put those files. So anyway, it's pretty simple. I won't bother with the web version. So I don't have to find that bit. I think it's just because that file is pretty large is why it's taking a while. But as soon as it does go out and connect to that file and bring it in, I'll get that pop up and it'll ask me if I want to upload it to SharePoint. All I was going to do is say yes, and you'll see that it just puts a link there for me when it's finished. Of course, I get to choose the location too. All right, so hopefully that'll finish by the time I come back. Sorry about that. Can never really anticipate the demo gods and how nice they're going to be. Today, not so nice. All right, so next up, we're talking about how to look professional, and this is getting to one of my very favorite topics, and Hal mentioned this as well in the chat, page templates, something we didn't get with Windows 10, and I was kind of disheartened because I've been talking about OneNote for a long time, and when I started teaching more about OneNote for Windows 10, I had to leave this out, and it was such a heartbreaking thing because it's so useful. But basically, with page templates, there are a bunch of built-in templates in OneNote that you can use to organize your notes in different ways. You'll notice on my screen now, if I zoom in, you get some examples: academic, business, there's even decorative, or those of you who like to have like some kind of planar template, as well as blank, just different page sizes and things with rule lines in some cases. But you can see, they've got some stuff ready to go for simple meeting notes, maybe more detailed meeting notes. For the academic, maybe it's class notes, right? And they're just a starting place. You don't have to use those all the time. But what I really liked about templates was actually the ability to create my own. Think about all of the Word documents that you have or different kinds of documents that you're using already, where you're basically save asing, right? You're just taking the old one from last month, save as, and then you open it up and you save it for the next month, right? And you just use that same thing, take out the old data and put in the new. With templates, you start with the blank one, right, with nothing filled out, and you just put it on your OneNote page. You can save that as a template and then use it again next month, right? So I'm going to attempt to show this to you. Okay. Get out the big guns here. Ooh, it's really stubborn. Okay. Well, while we're waiting, any questions so far on any of these tips? I know it's a lot, like rapid fire tips and tricks. Oh yeah, so John, you're a Mac user, no templates. Yep, Sharon loves templates. Tamara has a question. Can you build a task list template in a way that auto sorts completed tasks to the bottom? Ooh, I don't think you can do any kind of like sorting. I'm trying to think, because like the templates will basically just use like a table, if you think about it that way, where you'd put the tasks in there. You could do tricks like insert space, right, to cut things apart and move them around. But there's not actually like a table sort ability that I can think of that would look at the data in the field. For that, actually, Tamara, what I'd probably recommend looking into is Microsoft List. That would be a really great tool that you could use individually or on a team, either way. If you use it individually, it's a really great way to track your own tasks. You put the fields in there, and you can have it show or not show based on completion status. If you don't like List, you could use To-Do, which is more out of the box. You don't have to customize it so much to get it up and going. But To-Do has more limitations, whereas List is going to be the most flexible app that you could use. And then, Henry, can you create templates for a team group? That's a good question. Does anybody on the call know that one? Shared templates?
You have to create a shared notebook and then create the template in there, and then they have to add it to their own.
Ah, awesome. All right. Thank you, Sherry. So yeah,
Nope.
shared notebook, shared templates. And then I like your addition there. OneTastic is an awesome add-in for OneNote Desktop. That has a lot of functionality. Yeah. And there's another one, OneNote Web Clipper, that I have in my bonus section. It's a really nice tool as well. Okay, let's try this again here. I guess I can close 10 as well. There we go. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. All right, so going into templates, let's go over here, and then I'm going to go up to my insert menu where I'll find page templates here. And then if I just drop that down, I'm going to see stuff that I've probably used recently. But if you just click on the button itself instead of the drop down, or if you use page templates here, that's how you get that side panel. Now, first I'll just show you one that's out of the box so you can kind of get a feel for it. Let's use planners, and we'll just do a prioritized to-do list. And this is nice because if you've been using OneNote for a while, you can imagine how long this would actually take to set up. Where you've got to have these three different boxes, right, with just a header and then different colors of checkboxes, so different tag types basically, which we'll get to tags. But it's really nice, and you can just drag items from high to low, right, and kind of build your own planner here rather than using like To-Do or Planner if this would be more useful for something. Now, what I'd rather do with my templates, like I mentioned, is actually just use something I already have. Maybe it's a Word document like these patient progress notes. And what I'm doing now, and this isn't realistic at all, I hope nobody's actually copying and pasting patient notes to create a new one. But if you do have something like that, you can just select all, copy the contents from that Word document, go into OneNote, and then just paste that, right? And this is going to be your framework. Now, you want to make sure that it's going to be formatted how you want it to be in every single iteration of this. So you're probably going to have to resize any tables that are in there like I am right now. Give yourself a little more space, right? There we go. And then once you have it like you want it to be, right? Maybe you've changed a few things, it looks great. Then you can go to your page templates dialog again, just like we did before. And then notice there's a save current pages template at the very bottom. I know that's tiny, but that's what that says. So I'll click on that. And my template name is going to be patient progress notes. And something that's really handy for those of you who are taking like meeting minutes or anything along those lines where it's recurring and regular every single time, you could consider just dedicating an entire section to that type of template, right? Where maybe instead of research, this section would actually be patient progress notes. And then I would check this box so that every new page I create in this section is going to use that template. So I'll do that just so you can see. I click on save, I fill out this month's maybe, so this is February. And then next month comes around, and now notice it says patient because that's how I saved it. But this is actually March, right? I'm just creating all of these, and they use that template immediately. So really nice way. And then in the future, If you're not using that checkbox to use that same template in this section all the time, notice it's going to show up under My Templates here. So you can go to a completely different section. We'll do a new section. In fact, I'll go to My Template, use that same template. All right, so go back to my slides here. So Outlook meetings. So this is the one kind of like I was mentioning with Outlook tasks, which has a little bit of a pickiness about it, where if you are using the desktop version of OneNote, I have to get this right, desktop version of Outlook, and you're trying to use meeting details, which you'll see here in just a little bit, it's going to want to connect to Outlook desktop, right? And I'll show you what I'm talking about because it's easier to see, I think. But basically, if you use the web version of OneNote, so the one inside of Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, or just OneNote.com, right? Then it's going to connect more easily to your cloud calendar, right, instead of desktop. So let me show you that. Here we go. We'll do a new page. And in the desktop version, starting there, on the home menu, you'll see an option here for meeting details. And you can drop that down and see if you have any meetings today. And I happen to know that this particular user does have meetings today, but they're not showing up. So if you're doing this right now, and you're looking at yours and you're like, I know I have a meeting after this, that's what's happening, is it's not connecting to Outlook desktop, right? Or maybe you don't use Outlook desktop. So if I open this same notebook, but as the same user, right? And we'll just stay on this page. There is a meeting details button on the insert ribbon here. So insert, meeting details. We'll try it again. Aha, there's my meetings. So from the web version, I'll choose a meeting that I'm going to have today. Notice it puts in all the information about that meeting from my calendar. I can actually click this link to go to the specific Outlook item that I just linked to, basically. Notice the join information is there. I've got attendance here. So I've got Adele and Alex are going to be in that meeting with me. And then for the meeting, I just take my notes down here. Right, so just a normal OneNote page, but it pre-populates a lot of details about that particular meeting. I could do another one, weekly check-in with engineers, and notice it creates a new page every time I do that. Now, one thing that I recommend here that's not built into that feature just yet is if you are going to use this to take or track attendance, then you can highlight all the participants. And then I like to just use the tags here. So there's a to-do tag. I put those on there. And then if Adele shows up, check Adele. Alex shows up, check Alex, right? And we'll talk more about tags here in a little bit, but it's just from your home ribbon and then tags. All right. Oh, tags. Perfect timing. So what you just saw me do, that was a to-do tag, but there's a whole bunch, and you're actually going to see more of these in the OneNote version rather than OneNote for Windows 10. So what you're seeing here is there's a whole bunch of categories there, like discussing with a specific individual. Obviously, that's been customized because we don't all work with someone named Bernie. You can do ideas, you can do passwords, maybe don't do that. But there's all sorts of different tags you can use. And that's nice, right? Because it gives you a visual indicator where I can see, oh, I had a question. When do you need this report that I just tagged there? And I can see it visually more quickly than if I didn't use a tag, right? And it gets me away from doing things like highlighting in different colors, using different font colors, those kind of things, right? Now, the real power of that is this button that you're seeing here used now called Find Tags, where I can search all of my tags across all of my notebooks or maybe just one section and have a sort of report-like experience. So let me show you tags. Going back to the desktop version. There we go. Oh yeah, and then sharing added meeting details is one of my most frequently used buttons, definitely. Super handy. All right, so here I am, I'm in OneNote, right? And I'm just we'll just make this one a really simple one. We'll just do grocery list. And we'll do milk, if I can spell, eggs and bread. There we go. And just like with attendees, a really basic example is to highlight what it is that you want to have tags and then use the tag. So notice there's a to-do tag button all by itself. That's the same as this one right here on that list. So I'll use to-do, there we go. And just like attendance, check them off to complete it. Now, it's not always going to be that. So there's a bunch of other categories here you can take note of. So things that are important, questions you have, discussing with a particular person, in this case, a Joanne, right? And that's probably something I created custom. Well, how do you create that? How do you get a Bernie? How do you get a Joanne? So notice down at the bottom, after all of these different ideas, there's customized tags. If you go there, you can either make a new tag or modify an existing one. So with that discussed with Joanne, I can just modify it, change that to Sharon, right? Click OK. Notice I could have changed a few other things, but really simple, right? Maybe project A, which doesn't make any sense to me, could be project M365 user group. AM365, that's something new. Project M365 user group. So I'm creating my own. And then as you're working with these tags and you're finding out how you want to categorize your notes better, like on your own, you kind of come up with your own system, you can decide to use shortcuts with these as well. So at the top of the same list, notice to do uses Control-1, important uses Control-2. And to be able to use these, you do have to reorder these a bit. So like my project M365 user group I just customized, I'm going to bump that up. And now it's going to use Control-8, right? I don't know if I can, yeah, I can make that a little bigger. There we go. So Control-8 is my project tag. All right, so with that in mind, I've got, let's see, I need to do the presentation. I need to do follow-up materials. There we go. So the presentation, Control-8. Now that's tagged that way. Follow-up materials is going to be my question with Sharon, right? Like, how can I get these to people? So I use two different tags there. And like I mentioned, the whole power of these tags, yeah, visual indicator is nice, but it's the reportability or the findability of using them. Think a bit about it like classifying your data in a way. So for that demo, I'm actually going to go to a different section, this events section here. I'll go to a new page. So it's completely blank. There are no tags on this page. And I'm going to use this Find Tags button. So I click on that. Notice right away I'm seeing all of my tags that I've been using. In this case, it's in this all notebooks. I can see that down there at the bottom. So I've got a discuss with Sharon. I've got a project M365 user group, some to-dos, and some tasks, the Outlook tasks that I used earlier. So notice you can group them different ways. It's choosing tag name by default, but I could say I want to go by notebook section, right? So there's different sections with different tags, maybe by title, maybe by date, however you want to. Personally, I love the tag name. And then what I really like about this, even though we're seeing it here in the side panel, is you could put it on a page. So down at the bottom of that tag summary, there's a link here to create a summary page, and it puts it right on a page. And from here, I could share this with other people, right? And I could say, hey, here's everything that's left to do in our notebook, or all the notes that we took collectively during that conference we attended together, right? It's a really nice way to kind of streamline how you're organizing information as a team or just by yourself, as you see here. All right, so any questions on tags? Hal, I like that template. Looks great. And Sherry says tags can also be created in a shared notebook for reference. They're machine specific, so you do have to add them manually, and can be helpful as a team to use the same tags. Definitely, yeah. So coming up with a shared system so that my red square matches your red square, right? So mine doesn't mean M365 and yours means Tableau or whatever it might be. Awesome. Right, so those are tags. And then as far as organization goes, this is showing you actually OneNote for Windows 10 or similar to the web version, if you will. But you can use more than just sections and pages. You can do groups of sections, right? You can do sub pages. So I'll actually show you that one here. Maybe. There we go. All right, so far in this particular section that I'm in, I've got pages and sub pages already. So how did I do this hierarchy, right? How did I bump those over? You can do it a few different ways. So for example, in this section, I don't have any sub pages yet. All I have to do to get started is just drag to the right. That's all I did. Click and drag to the right. You can do it again, click and drag to the right. So that's pretty simple. And the benefit of that is now I can roll up those pages, right? Maybe this first page is a summary or like an overview of the rest of the topics that these pages correlate to or whatever. So I would put those under a page as a sub page, and then I could roll those up and focus on maybe the current month, maybe the current project or client or whatever the case is. And especially for screen shares like I'm doing right now, maybe this is stuff that you don't need to see, right? It's just in the way, it's muddy. I could collapse that and we all could focus on the relevant pages for that group of pages. Now with sections, it's a little bit different. You can just right click up where your sections are and choose a new section group, okay? When I do that, maybe I have something for events. And then rather than a section for all of my events squished together where I've got like Kansas City M365 user group, 365 EduCon, maybe it makes more sense at some point to make those individual sections that I can then group in an events section group. Ooh, I'm saying that a lot. So to use those, all you have to do is drag and drop. So I'll take events, drag and drop it into events. And then maybe I rename this one M365 user group. Maybe I create another one for 365 EduCon, so on and so forth. So now they're more separated, but they're still organized, right? By using groups instead of just a ton of pages in one section. So with that, if you are thinking about reorganizing, I just want to give you a quick tip. You can also drag and drop pages. So for example, I made a new section for 365 EduCon. I might just take those 3 pages, drag and drop. Maybe. Let me try that again. And there we go. All right, so I got my 365 EduCon and my 2 sub pages for that. And then we'll just get rid of this blank page. So it's very drag and drop friendly. The smallest little move can make a sub page, so be careful with that. If you don't like dragging, you can also right click and notice there's make sub page or promote sub page. Okay, it does the same thing. With these groups of sections, you can also just use the move buttons. So move or copy. Notice I can merge into another section if I want to, which basically just takes all the pages and squishes them into another one that's already existing. But yeah, you just got to figure out what's the right hierarchy, what makes the most sense using a combination of section groups, individual sections, pages, and subpages. Now, with that in mind, some feedback that I get all the time is that I hate having to look on the left for my sections and notebooks, and then my sections are at the top, and then my pages are all the way on the right. It's just so spread out, right? So what you can do is actually customize that, and I'm kind of jumping ahead because I know we're running short on time here. But if you go to File in OneNote and go to your options, you can actually change your display. And notice there's an option right here where page tabs can appear on the left. Okay, now if you're the opposite, and maybe you like your sections or your navigation for notebooks on the right with the pages, you can just uncheck navigation bar appears on the left, and that'll put it over here instead. So it's up to you if you want it all on the right, all on the left, or if you like it split like this. That's totally a personal preference kind of thing, but I'm going to choose to put my pages on the left with my notebooks and sections. So I click OK, and now this makes more sense to me. This is how I just personally prefer to read notebook, section, page, all right here. Okay, so again, just in case you missed that, it's File, Options, Display. All right. Lots of ways to organize. So with that, we'll go into our maximize and customize topics. Same place that I just went, File, Options. On General, you can choose to switch to dark mode. Now, a lot of these Office apps are going to default to use the system setting, so that may be what it is today. If you do want to make just OneNote dark mode, you could use the dark gray or black. If you use system setting, then whatever you set your Windows machine to use, maybe it's dark mode there, all of your Office apps then would inherit that, right? So to me, that seems the most efficient. Usually if you like dark mode, you'd like to use it in multiple apps rather than have to pick per app. So in that case, just use system setting and change your Windows theme instead. All right, moving on. Let's see, we talked about tags. I must have got that one in there twice. So docking is another way to kind of view your OneNote notebooks. What I'm doing here is I just went up to the view menu and there's an option to dock. And basically that allows you to take notes alongside something else you're working on. So this is actually an image that I pulled together 2 years ago when I did a OneNote presentation for this same user group. And I'm just showing how I could work on that image on the left and maybe take notes about it or track some thoughts as I'm going just off to the side, right? So it takes away all the menu, all the extra space, and just gives me a space to kind of have a sticky note, right? So I won't show you that one just because we're kind of short on time, but it is a nice feature to have. All right, and then page titles from that same view menu. Notice there's your dock to desktop. You can also hide page titles. So those of you who maybe draw using a stylus or something, don't really need a page title in the way and you just want to get rid of it, you can hide it. And the only thing that I'm going to warn you about there is that once you do hide a page title, it can't be restored, right? So just remember what it was if you do want to put it back, because a hide is kind of like a delete too. And then you can always put the title back, but you have to retype it. All right. So distraction free, yeah. So kind of that same idea of being able to focus, right? And we can dock it and have a side-by-side experience. You can also just get rid of the menu completely and go full screen mode, right? And then I just have my page title, I've got my page notes. I can switch my navigation in the upper right. So when it goes back, there we go. Notice here's my navigation that I can use. But it just lets me focus, right? No other notebook or sections or pages to look at. I'm just gonna focus right here and take my notes. I use this a lot when I'm on just my Surface device because I get more real estate to work with, right? And it's not so squished together. And it really helps me just kind of hone in. Right, and then we talked about that. This is just how to move the page navigation. So you'll get that in the slides. And we're almost there. Yeah, shortcuts. All right. Just flies when you're having fun. So these are just some fun shortcuts. A lot of these, keep in mind, work in many apps. You could use these same shortcuts in Outlook, in Word, all kinds of things. And I'm going to just kind of talk about each of them. I'm not going to show you them, but you're welcome to test them out yourself. And then let's see, there's also a resource I'm going to share at the end of the shortcuts section where you can learn about all of the shortcuts that are possible with OneNote across all the versions. So this one's pretty basic. We use it a lot for different apps. Control K. So it's basically just going to create a fancy link. You put the title in there, you put the URL in there, and it does the hyperlinking for you. Okay, and then I will show you, I lied, I do want to show you this. So something that's really handy for those of you who are going to be using subpages is you could create, here, let me find one. Like this team meetings here is a parent page if you think about it that way. Maybe you want to create a table of contents here, right? I mean, you've kind of got it off to the left, but you could put a link here just using Control K, and notice when you do it in OneNote, not the web version, but just in OneNote, you can actually link to other sections, other notebooks, other pages. And the only thing you have to keep in mind there is who has access to it, right? I shouldn't link to stuff that somebody can't even get to, but it's really nice. And I could say, oh, you know what, from this kind of parent page, I would like to show people that they could easily get to this St. Louis info page, right? And I just click that, and now within my notebook, they can go straight to that page. So it's more than just a link when it comes to OneNote in that case. All right, Control N, this happens the same, like in Word, if you use Control N, it creates a new page. In OneNote, Control N creates a new page. Control Alt 1, Control Alt 2, these are going to apply heading styles. So notice in the little video here, it's showing someone applying heading style 1, 2, and 3. And all you do is just choose the number in that shortcut. So Control Alt, and then which level of header do I want to use? And the benefit of this is it's pretty broad. People who use screen readers benefit from having heading styles. I think it looks super professional. If you apply any themes or designs, it uses those heading styles to determine how that's going to look. And it saves you a bunch of time having to format, headers manually, right? And choosing a different color, choosing a different font size, copying and pasting formatting can be a bit of a mess. So I use this all the time, and then usually combine that with applying a theme. All right, and then finding, there's two different shortcuts you can use here. Control F is a contextual search on the current page that you're on. Control E is an everywhere search. So F is just a normal find, E is an everywhere search. And you can kind of see some examples here where if you just search there, it's going to obviously stay where you are and give you results on that page. But an everywhere search breaks it up for you. It's like, oh, this is in the title, this is on a specific page, it tells you the location of those. And if you don't want to use the shortcut, you can also just use the built-in search bar, and it has a drop-down arrow you can use to limit your search instead of to a page, to maybe that section, or that section group, or that particular notebook instead of all notebooks. Right, Control M is handy, and this one's being demonstrated here as well, where basically it doubles your OneNotes that are open. So you have a notebook open and you're like, you know what, I need to compare this week's meeting to last week's meeting, right? And just look at them side by side. Or maybe you want to have a procedure open in one notebook as you take notes or work on an agenda for next week on the other one, right? So Control M will just duplicate your window, and then you can use your split screen ability to look at it side by side, right? All right. Oh, and I do want to point out one Windows 11 feature. Here we go. So I'll go ahead and do the Control M here. Maybe. There we go. Just took a minute. So I've got two windows open. It was kind of hard to see. It didn't really do anything flashy or exciting there. But in Windows 11, when you're splitting your screen, you can just hover your mouse over a maximize icon and it gives you layouts to choose from. So instead of just dragging to the side, you actually could say, I want this to be a 1/3 on the side, and then I want to focus the rest of my attention on 2/3, right? So this is my procedure, and maybe I get rid of this, right? And then I can see a little better. Maybe I go full screen there, right? It's kind of using a combination of techniques. And then I've got my majority of attention right there.
And Nate, I just want to let you know we've got about 3 minutes left.
Okay.
If anybody would like to stick around and ask questions, that's absolutely fine. But we're coming up on the end of the hour, so just giving you a time check.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, some questions there. So yeah, the recording will be available, I assume, within a week or so. I'm not sure Angela might know that one though.
Yes, it'll be out by the end of the week.
Okay. Kim, have you heard anything about ability to share just a page? No. So unfortunately, there's nothing there. If you do use Outlook Desktop, you can email a page, which is basically just like a copy paste of the page's contents. But yeah, right now you do have to share the whole notebook if you're going to share it all. And then you can just copy a link to the page, but they do have to have access to the parent notebook. I will mention you can password protect sections. That can just get kind of hairy, and I've ran into many situations where someone leaves a company with the passwords, and then it's almost impossible to get back in. So maybe not the best idea if you don't have some place to store those passwords in a shared environment. Okay, and then Tamara, can notebooks be versioned? Absolutely, yeah. So if you go up to your, let's see, is it review? One of these. History. There we go. So history has page versions where you can go back and see who made changes and what it looked like at different points in time. So yeah, just go to the page that you want to see the history for and then page versions. Awesome. All right, so that's pretty much, we're near the end anyway. So let me just show you what we didn't get to. We've got 4 more shortcuts. I do have a link there for all the shortcuts, and then just some bonus ideas, which is basically just the web clipper extension, the ability to take a picture and draw on it using the draw tools, and combining OneNote with Power Automate. So I'll just give you a 1-second glance at that because it's amazing. It could be a whole presentation by itself. And then my last thing is just a thank you. So thank you all for taking the time to join us for lunch today. I hope you learned at least 1 or 2 new tricks that you can use with OneNote. And I hope you're as excited as I am about the upcoming changes with the consolidation. So thank you. Have a great rest of your week.